score of this patient. Also, I would like to know if the patient had any history of acute urinary retention in the past, or any history of any trauma in the past, or history of any catheterization or instrumentation in the past. Also, I would like to rule out any history of urethral discharge, any history of flank pain, hematuria, or fever. Or I would also like to rule out history of any neurosurgical intervention, any history of back pain, or history of any loss of appetite, loss of weight, hemoptysis, jaundice, or long bone pain, sir.
So can you show him the next slide?
Okay, for the history of presenting illness, he predominantly had voiding LUTs with a poor flow, intermittency, straining, hesitancy, and sense of incomplete evacuation. He had nocturia for 3 to 4 times, and urgency was also present. The IPSS score was 22 out of 35. The other history was insignificant.
So now, whatever you have told and you have asked in history, what else you want to ask from the patient?
Sir, apart from this history, I would like to ask from the patient if he has any history of any diabetes in the past history. I would like to ask whether the patient has any history of diabetes, any history of tuberculosis, or patient has in the personal history. I'd like to ask if the patient has any history of any substance abuse, or the patient is sexually active in the past or not, and about the marital status and the children history of this patient. Also, I would like to ask the patient about the dietary history of the patients, whether patients consumes what diet the patient consumes, and how much fluid intake of the patient has apart from this.
So first you tell me, what is the differential diagnosis currently?
Sir, with the 64-year male presenting with the chief complaints of LUTs, at this age, first differential diagnosis, my first differential diagnosis would be a benign prostatic enlargement with LUTs. Second differential diagnosis could be a idiopathic stricture disease of the urethra. And third would be a carcinoma of the prostate. And fourth, and keeping in the diagnosis could be a vesical calculus, sir, secondary to benign prostatic enlargement probably.
So what about neurogenic bladder?
Sir, sir, as the patient did not had any history of back pain, any history of trauma, or any history of neurosurgical intervention in the past, so it is very unlikely that the patient would have neurogenic bladder, sir, or any history of any paralysis or any neurosurgical neurosurgical involvement. The patient doesn't give any history of this.
So did you ask about history of constipation, weakness in the lower limbs?
Yes, sir. I would like to also ask that, sir, and I didn't ask her.
So you have to rule out neurological involvement and you have to ask these specific questions.
Yes.
Okay. So why not GUTB?
Sir, as the patient did not have any history of tuberculosis or contact with the TB, and also the patient age is not in the favor of GUTB, sir. Generally, GUTB presents in early 20 to 40 years of age, and also the presentation in GUTB is mainly of irritative LUTs, mainly irritative LUTs, sir. So very unlikely that at this age of the patient would have GUTB.
So you look at this slide. So this history is given.
Yes, sir.
Right. So now, what do you want to do next?
Yes, sir. The patient had history of taking medications. I would like to elaborate this history also. What kind of medications is he taking? If he had what kind of medications he is taking, I would like to know that history also. Apart from this, history, I would like to examine the patient. I would do a general physical examination of the patient from head to toe. I would record his pulse, blood pressure, and general condition of the patient. I would see for any pyloricterus clubbing, cyanosis, or lymphadenopathy, if there is any. And I will do a per abdominal examination. I will look for any scar or per abdominal fullness, suprapubic fullness, and any fullness in the flank region. And also I will confirm these inspiratory finding with palpation, look for any percussible or palpatory bladder. Apart from this, I will do I will look for the external genitalia. I will look for the meatus of the patients, and whether there is any induration over the gland, over the penis. Also, I would like to do a digital rectal examination of the patient to see for any to see for the prostate and prostatomegaly for this patient. And also I would like to do a focused neurological examination in this patient to look for any perianal sensation and anal tone.
Okay, so you can show him the examination finding.
Okay, the patient is alert, conscious, oriented. He is moderately built and nourished. He has a normal pulse and a normal blood pressure. The BMI is 25 and the ECOG status is 1. There was no pallor, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, jaundice, pedal edema, or lymphadenopathy. Going to the local examination, the external genitalia was grossly normal. The inspection, the anal tone was normal. He had a grade 3 prostatomegaly with a hard nodular prostate in which the median sulcus was obliterated and it was non-tender. The rectal mucosa was free. Focal neurological examination is normal.
Now, after doing this examination, do you want to revise your differential diagnosis?
Yes, sir.
Or you want to keep the same?
No, sir, I would like to reframe my differential diagnosis as I have found a hard nodular prostate, grade 3 prostatomegaly. So I would like to keep carcinoma of the prostate as my first differential diagnosis. And second will be a BP with the nodule and or any calcification. And these two main differential diagnoses I would like to keep. Third could be any granulomatous prostate. Chronic prostatitis.
What are the causes of hard nodule in a prostate?
Yes, sir. First, sir, the carcinoma of the prostate. Second is there could be any calcification, or it could be due to chronic prostatitis, or it could be due to granulomatous disease of the prostate, including tuberculosis, and it could be due to any calcification in the prostate, which could present as hard nodule.
So, do you think after seeing the nodule, the vesical stone is not a possibility in this patient?
Yes, sir. It could be a possibility, but it would be a secondary calculus. It could be a possibility, sir, but first it would be associated with a carcinoma of prostate or benign prostatic enlargement secondary to. However, it could not be ruled out at this stage.
Okay, and what about stricture?
Sir, the external genitalia is normal, and external genitalia examination is normal, and there is no history of any catheterization, instrumentation, any history of urethral discharge. So stricture would be very unlikely, sir, that this patient would have, sir.
So now, how do you want to investigate this patient?
Sir, sir, first I would like to obtain the diagnostic investigations in the form of urine routine culture, kidney function test, and serum PSA for this patient. And also, as I have kept vesical calculus in my differential diagnosis, I would like to do ultrasound KUV with PVR for this patient.
You can show him the investigation.
The urine routine showed a significant amount of WBCs, with the culture was positive for E. coli, sensitive to the following antibiotics. The serum urea and creatinine were within normal limits.
Okay.
For the ultrasound, this is the image.
Yes. On ultrasound, sir, bilateral kidneys on the left side is labeled as left, and on the right is labeled right kidney. Bilateral kidney seems to be normal. Parenchymal thickness appears to be normal. I could not make out the dimension of the kidneys, but the corticomedullary differentiation seems to be maintained. There is no hydronephrosis or any acoustic shadowing seen in the left in bilateral kidney. Also, in the second image, I could see the bladder. It is seems to be adequately filled, and the wall thickness appears to be slightly thickened, with no internal echoes, no history of any debris or no history of any calculus or any acoustic shadowing is seen in the bladder. And I could see the prostate in the sagittal section also. However, I could not make out any. I could not see any dimensions of the prostate.
Okay, so based on this is the report you can see.
It also asked for serum PSA. I'll show you.
PSA.
Yeah.
So this is the PSA.
Yes, sir.
Now
PSA is 22.8, sir.
You got the PSA now.
Yes, sir.
Urine examination you have seen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think the urine was infective, sir. E. coli. I think the patient has received antibiotic. However, I didn't obtain any information about this. But the PSA was repeated after 4 weeks.
What will you do? Forget about this. You get a patient 22 PSA, urine examination and culture showing infection. What should be done?
So first, I would like to treat the infection with the oral antibiotics. I would give a culture sensitive antibiotic to these patients for minimum 7 days, and then I would like to repeat the culture of this patient after 48 hours of the antibiotics. If it comes to be sterile, then I will repeat the PSA after a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks, sir.
Minimum of how many weeks? 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
Sir, at least 3 weeks, sir.
Why?
As a half-life of PSA is 2 to 3 days, sir. So it is around 6 to 7 half cycles. The PSA becomes undetectable. So after that, I will like to repeat this.
Okay. So after repeating the PSA is still high. Culture is sterile.
Yes,
now
sir.
What do you want to do?
Sir, for this patient, as the patient has hard nodular prostate, grade 3 prostate, and with a high PSA of 20, I would like to do a systematic truss biopsy, 12-core truss biopsy for this patient, sir.
So you want to go for biopsy. Is there any role of MRI before biopsy?
Sir, MRI, sir, before biopsy is mainly obtained in cases of when the PSA is generally in the gray zone 4 to 10, and we could not find any lesion or nodule in the prostate. So the MRI would increase, MP-MRI obtaining before the prostate biopsy would increase the yield of the specimen. It would increase the detection of high grade cancer, clinically significant high grade cancer. It would increase around 20% yield for ISUP grade 2 and around 30% yield for ISUP grade 3. But in cases of gray zone, sir, it doesn't have many implications in when we have a nodular prostate.
So if you do biopsy now and you suppose you get a cancer, what will you do next now after biopsy?
Sir, after biopsy, sir, I will wait for 4 weeks and then I will do an MRI, cross-sectional imaging in the form of CT or MRI and a bone scan, sir.
If you get a MRI, because you have to wait for 4 weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
At least. So because if there are any cons if you are doing MRI after biopsy?
Sir, Actually, sir, if we are obtaining MRI in the first setting also, then we will obtain a biopsy, systemic and targeted biopsy. And after that also, if we are planning for any surgical intervention, then the recommendation is to wait for 6 to 8 weeks after biopsy, needle biopsy, and around 12 weeks for any intervention like TURP. And also in cases of
wait, Vijay, wait. What did you
yes,
say? 12 weeks. Huh?
Yes, sir. 6 to 8 weeks, sir, after needle biopsy, sir. If we are planning for surgery, sir. And sir, 12 weeks for if TURP is done, sir. That
So
will have to wait, sir.
6
Yes,
to 8
sir.
weeks.
Yes, sir.
So, what is your reference for that?
Campbell, sir.
6 to 8 weeks.
Yes, sir. 6 to 8 weeks after biopsy and 12 weeks after TURP, sir.
Okay, Samarth.
For surgery.
Samarth is there.
Yes, sir.
So, what is the reference?
So 8 weeks is given in Campbell. It is correct, I think.
Okay, 6 to 8 weeks after biopsy.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
What will happen if you do surgery before 6 to 8 weeks?
The surgery or
before,
MRI?
Sir,
See, you said intervention, huh?
Yes, sir. For any intervention, sir, we have to wait for 6 to 8 weeks. Also for obtaining an Yes, sir.
No, this is what I'm asking. If you do surgery before 6 to 8 weeks, what will happen?
Yes, sir. Sir, before surgery, when we have done an intervention like needle biopsy, 12-core needle biopsy, sir, the planes of the prostate, there is edema and inflammation is there, and the planes are not well defined, sir. So there is increased chance of leaving positive surgical margins in these patients when we are doing immediate surgery, sir.
And if you are dealing with a high-risk prostate cancer, then is there any chance of upstaging of disease while you're waiting for 2 months?
Yes, sir. But in any condition, sir. But sir, it is recommended to wait for 6 to 8 weeks, sir, in order so that the planes are well defined and the dissections could be easily done, and also there are less chances of obtaining surgical margin, sir. But the prostate cancer is indolent cancer, sir. So it grows very slowly, sir. So we could wait for one and a half months, sir. 6 to 8 weeks is generally recommended, sir.
So in this patient, you think if you do MRI first, we are not going to gain anything, right?
Yes, sir. MRI is for in this patient. MRI would not help much in cases of MRI targeted biopsy, because I already have a hard nodular prostate. So it is very likely that the patient is a high risk. Also, the PSA is in the range of 20-22. So it is already in the range. It will already fall in the range of high risk probably. And MRI is just for sir loco-regional staging, sir. That could be done later also, sir.
Okay, so what kind of biopsy you want to do?
Sir, I'll do a systematic 12-core truss biopsy, sir, via a transrectal or a transperineal route, sir.
So you said transperineal route also. So why transperineal?
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, in EAU 2021, they have recommended transperineal biopsy to be the first choice and transrectal to be the second choice, because in transperineal biopsy there are less chances of sepsis, and less chances of hospital admission post biopsy. So they are recommending transperineal biopsy as first choice. Our Campbell says that transrectal ultrasound, 12-core transrectal with transrectal route is the preferred choice.
So what are the disadvantages of using transperineal routes?
The transperineal routes, sir, first disadvantage is there, sir. The patient first is the patient the pain is there, sir. The patient has requires a large amount of sedation or analgesic. Also, in transperineal route, the mapping of the biopsy mapping is done. Mapping of the prostate mapping is done before obtaining the truss biopsy by transrectal route, and there are all chances of missing significant cancers in transperineal biopsy. However, the yield of the biopsy of the comparing transperineal transrectal was almost similar, sir.
So what I was asking is, if you do transperineal versus transrectal, what is the biggest problem for the patient? You said pain. That
Yes,
is okay, but how will the pain contribute at that difference?
Sir,
how do you?
Patient will.
So I will ask you now, after giving a hint, what kind of anesthesia do you require for transperineal biopsy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, actually, transrectal can be done with a local anesthesia, and transperineal will require a regional anesthesia or a good local anesthesia in the periprostatic tissue with large amount of analgesic. That would.
Most of the transperineal biopsies, they are requiring than a local anesthesia, right?
Yes, sir.
So that is the biggest disadvantage of using the transperineal route.
Yes, sir.
And number two, many of our urologists are not trained in using this approach, right? So that's why it is not commonly used approach across the world. So in exams, you will say transrectal is the preferred route. If someone asks you what is the other route you know and what are the advantages, you should know that. But in exams, do not say transperineal is the better approach than transrectal. Because in exams, you're supposed to say what you are doing practically. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
So now you want to do biopsy. So
yes,
you can show him next slide. Okay. That's the biopsy. So what do you want? Do you think the biopsy report is okay, or you want to know some other information?
Sir, actually, overall the biopsy report seems to be sufficient. Also, I would like to know the involvement of each core also, apart from this involvement of each course, and what is the Gleason's grading of each core separately.
Okay. Now, after getting this biopsy, what next?
Sir, as the PSA of the patient is 20 and the Gleason score is 8, sir. So it falls in the risk of high risk group. So I'll obtain cross-sectional imaging in the form of CT, CCT whole abdomen pelvis or MRI whole abdomen pelvis and with a bone scan.
So again, the problem is when you are asked in the exams, do not just speak out theoretically whatever is written in the books. What will you do? Whether you do CT or MRI? You are a treating surgeon. So then why did you ask for CT? That is a problem between a confident resident and a underconfident resident. You should speak those things which you will do practically. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to do CT scan in any of the prostate patient?
No, sir. Generally, we do I'll do MRI whole abdomen, pelvis, and bone scan.
What are the indication of getting CT scan done in these patients? You should know everything, na? Yes, why, in what circumstances you will ask for CT scan?
Sir, MRI is better because MRI gives the local staging for this patient also.
Listen to my question. Do not speak out without listening to the question of the examiner. What did I ask you? I asked you specifically indication of getting CT scan done in these patients. Huh?
Yes.
So you have to answer me that question. Na? Don't tell me the advantages of MRI over CT. That is the next question, not this question. Do you know or do you don't know?
Indications.
Come on, Vijay. This is common sense. Okay, Sagar. Sagar is there?
Yes.
Tell me.
Yes, sir. Sir, if patient have any implant, metallic implant,
right,
then we go for the
number one. And anything else? Come on, man. This is such a simple thing. I think even JR can tell me here. Number two. Okay.
But,
और कौन है? अमिताभ है. अमिताभ.
Yes, sir. The patient, if the patient has a claustrophobia, then we have
हाँ.
to,
हाँ.
because question time is longer in MRI as compared to CT.
तो कोई रॉकेट साइंस पूछ लिया क्या मैंने तुम लोगों से भाई, जो इतना तुम लोग को प्रॉब्लम हो गया हैं? These are the two most common contraindication for MRI: having any metallic implant or cardiac pacemaker or a cardiac stent. And number two, claustrophobia. समझ आई कि नहीं आई? क्लियर है? तुम लोगों से एक्सपेक्ट नहीं था कि तुम लोग ये आंसर नहीं कर पाओगे यार, तो मतलब एक जेआर भी बता देता है वाली बात। जो भी कोई जाता है ना एमआरआई कराने, उसको भी पता है कि किस में नहीं कराना है। रोज आप फॉर्म भरते हो, उसमें लिखा होता है, लिखा होता नहीं लिखा होता है फिर?
Yes.
चलो ओके, सो नाउ यू टेल मी व्हाई एमआरआई इज प्रेफर्ड ओवर सीटी। अब मैं सेकंड क्वेश्चन पे आता हूं।
Yes, sir.
हम्म।
MRI gives better local staging of the prostate also. MRI provides better local staging of the prostate also, and MRI is also more sensitive MRI has more sensitive advantage over the CT in obtaining for lymph node status, sir. First is loco-regional, sir, staging, and second is, sir, for lymph node, sir.
So loco-regional staging includes lymph node also, na?
Yes, sir.
What is the other thing? One is a loco-regional staging. What is the
Yes,
other
sir.
information you want to derive from MRI, which will help you in the further management? Staging is one thing. That means local regional spread. Okay. Then what else?
Sir, it also is a sensitive investigations for bone involvement also, MRI. So that
MRI you don't do for bony involvement, na? What are you talking about? So you should be very clear in your thoughts when you answer in exams. How it is going to affect your management later on? What other additional information can drive for MRI, which is better in MRI as compared to CT scan? Very simple. One is you said spread. Okay, it's involving the
so involvement of the sir neurovascular bundle.
हाँ, इतना टाइम क्यों लगा यार? इतना टाइम लगा, इसका नाम मार्क्स गए तुम्हारे सर। ये तो तुम्हारे टिप्स पर होना चाहिए यार। अब प्रोस्टेट कैंसर अगर तुम नहीं बता पाओगे तो फिर लाना था यार हम लोगों पर। This is the simplest case I think for a CA prostate for now, at least for our residents.
Yes.
कितना सिंपल क्वेश्चन है, इसका टाइम क्यों लिया तुमने?
Sir,
MRI will tell you about extracapsular extension, involvement of central vesicle, which is better visualized in MRI, and number 3 is neurovascular involvement. ठीक है? All these three are better visualized on MRI as compared to CT scan. And then of course the lymph nodes. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब इनको दिखाओ, नेक्स्ट इमेजिंग है तो दिखाओ कितनी। Can you read out something? What kind of imaging is this?
Yes,
and one more question: do you need a multiparametric MRI in this patient?
No, sir. Multiparametric MRI is specifically not needed for this patient, sir.
No.
Yes, sir.
What kind of investigation you want to order for this patient?
I will order, sir, a simple MRI abdomen and pelvis, sir, for this patient. Multiparametric is generally recommended in the pre-biopsy setting, sir.
Okay. And you want to look for the neurovascular bundle involvement. Which one is better?
Sir, that will be better with the MP MRI, sir, with neurovascular bundle involvement. But and MRI focusing on the prostate will also give me at least information for the involvement of the neurovascular bundle, sir. MP MRI will give you additional information of the IUCP grade, sir.
Okay. Prashant is there? Yadav.
Sir.
So which is better?
For the neurovascular bundle, sir, the MP MRI and MRI abdomen are considered to be almost same, sir.
So now two residents have got two different answers. Now Samarth.
Yes, sir. Sir, for any extra prostatic extension or seminal vesicle involvement or neurovascular bundle involvement, multiparametric MRI is better as compared to a simple MRI.
So the answer is, if you are planning, if you are anticipating any surgical intervention in this patient, then it's better to go for multi-parametric MRI.
Sir.
But suppose the patient's PSA would have been in thousands or hundreds, and patient was also complaining of bone pains. So that is a patient you are suspecting to be a metastatic CA prostate. So that patient, you do not need multi-parametric MRI, just go for a simple MRI. Am I clear now?
Yes, sir.
So this patient, you are still justified, but you have to justify why multi-parametric MRI, because you have to say that is this patient might be a candidate for surgical intervention despite being a high-risk prostate cancer. Because if it is a high-risk localized prostate cancer, or if it is a locally advanced high-risk prostate cancer, still he might be a candidate for surgical intervention. Okay, that is your answer. So now you tell me what are the findings.
Sir, in figure A, I could see the well-defined peripheral zones,
that is again a
and
problem.
I could see hypointense lesion.
Vijay, first thing you should tell me is what kind of sequence is this?
Yes, sir. First two sequences are seems to be T2 weighted imaging, and the C and D seems to be diffusion weighted imaging and diffusion contrast enhanced.
Okay, the A and B are
T2 images, sir.
okay. So what are the findings?
Yes, sir. I could see as a hypointense lesion in the anterior part of the prostate, in the transition zone of the prostate. However, there is no hypointense or any lesion seen in the peripheral zone of the prostate, which is also the arrow in the B figure also shows the hypointense lesions on sagittal section, and on diffusion weighted imaging there is a hyper intense, the lesion is hyper intense, which again becomes hypo intense or on diffusion contrast. So it seems to be a high ISUP grade lesion, sir.
What about seminal vesicles?
Seminal vesicle seems to be, sir, seminal vesicle seems to be free, sir, and I could not see, sir, neurovascular.
Extra capsular extensions, you have to tell all
No,
those
sir.
things. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Can you appreciate any neurovascular bundles in this section?
But I could not appreciate neurovascular bundles.
Okay.
How could I, in figure A, I could see the base, but I would need further imaging, sir, further sequence also.
Okay. So in exams, you will be shown at least 2 more films if they are there, and then you can show him the final report.
So this was a PIRADS 4 lesion on the PIRADS version 2 criteria.
So now, do you think there is any role of PIRADS scoring right now in this patient?
Sir, PIRADS scoring is mainly for the pre-biopsy setting, sir. In the post-biopsy setting, I don't think that for a hard nodular prostate there is any role for this. MRI I'm doing basically for knowing the loco-regional disease. I would like to know the lymph node status of these patients.
Okay, so Ketan, you can show him the other information about MRI if you have.
This is the only slide, sir, in the MRI report. Yeah.
Okay, so let's assume there is no extra capsular extension, no seminal vesicle involvement. Neurovascular bundles are also not involved, right? Because it's an anterior region,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there are no lymph nodes. What next now?
Sir, I will do a bone scan, sir, for this patient to
Why
the metastatic status.
why not PET scan and why bone scan in this patient? If I ask you this question.
Sir, PET scan, although PET scan has a high sensitivity for detection of lymph node as well as bony lesions in cases of a carcinoma of prostate, but still in clinical guidelines, the bone scan and MRI is recommended as the investigation of choice, sir, because the validation of the data and the further impact on overall survival with PSMA PET scan is not available till date, sir.
So, PSMA PET scan might be having higher sensitivity and specificity for loco-regional disease, especially the lymph nodes. Mainly you're talking about lymph nodes, and other metastatic sites. So for all these metastatic lesions, if you compare with the bone scan, because with the bone scan you only are looking for the bony metastasis.
Yes, sir.
For other organ involvement, PGCM PET scan has got better sensitivity and specificity, but still not worth enough because it has not translated into increased survival benefits. That's
Yes.
why not recommended in the guidelines, but in some institutes it is being done as a protocol. Okay, so you are right if you say I want to go for bone scan. ठीक है, bone scan दिखाओ, एक्सरे है. ओके, बोन स्कैन आ गया. अब क्या इसमें कुछ है, नॉर्मल है, abnormal है?
Sir, there is seems to be increased uptake in the in the sacral region and also in the lumbar region, sir. Seems to be increased uptake activity of the bone scan, sir. To see the report of this scan, sir.
ठीक है, रिपोर्ट दिखाओ.
So the bone scan demonstrated an increased tracer uptake in the sternum and C6 vertebral body. The remainder of the tracer uptake was because of degenerative changes.
So it says only 2 sites their increased uptake.
Yes,
Yes,
and
Right?
yes, sir.
So you should understand that in this, on the left hand side picture, you can see a sternum and the C6, right?
Yes,
But
yes, sir.
the one we see in the pelvis is the prostate only, and
Yes, sir.
this is not
No,
the.
it seems to be
It is a part of the sacrum only.
degenerative. Yes, sir.
The degenerative changes are there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So this is the only 2 they have listed as the potential sites. So
Yes.
now what else you want to do after this?
After this, I will do a complete metastatic workup for this patient, sir. I will do a chest X-ray, liver function test with alkaline phosphatase and serum calcium for this patient, sir.
Okay, that is normal. So now, after seeing all this, what is your final diagnosis?
So final diagnosis is prostatic adenocarcinoma with clinical stage T2N0 M1B.
Okay. So you want to say it's a metastatic prostate cancer?
Yes, sir.
So does it qualify under oligometastatic prostate cancer?
Yes, sir. It qualifies under oligometastatic cancer, which states which has arbitrary definitions, but generally states that around 3 or less than 3 bony lesions are to be considered as oligometastatic, sir.
It is not only the number, but also the site which is involved also makes definition of oligometastatic.
Yes, sir.
So what are the sites which are considered as oligometastatic? Axial or appendicular skeleton?
Yes, sir. Axial skeleton, sir. Axial skeleton, 3 or less bony lesions in the axial skeleton, none outside the axial skeleton. Axial skeleton consists of the vertebra and the pelvis, sir.
Vertebra and pelvis.
Yes, sir. Skull is not included in the axial skeleton. Yes,
what
sir.
about sternum?
Not included, sir.
So then how it is oligometastatic then? Because in this you have sternum involvement.
Yes, sir. Only one lesion is there, sir. But as the definition is arbitrary, sir, for oligometastatic disease, so someone considers as lesions as overall lesions of less than or equal to 3, sir, also, and somewhere it is also given less than or equal to 4 also, sir.
So primarily it has to be involvement of axial skeleton only, and should be less than 4. This is one of the common consensus, but although it's not a recommended definition, it's just a consensus of definitions. Okay, so now let's not go on to that side. So you have a metastatic CA prostate, right? What will be your management? How will you manage this patient?
Sir, is the patient 64-year-old, sir? I would like to calculate the life expectancy of the patient with the life expectancy tables and also like to ask the patients about the age in the family and the father's age. That would give me idea of the life, rough idea of the life expectancy of this patient. And then if I would like to offer, as the patient is asymptomatic, metastatic, this patient will fall in the category of asymptomatic metastatic carcinoma of the prostate. So I'd like to offer hormone therapy for this patient in the form of androgen deprivation therapy with some combination hormone therapy, sir, in the form of androgen deprivation therapy with some antagonist of the androgen antagonist, sir.
Antagonist?
Androgen antagonist, sir, with androgen deprivation therapy, combined androgen blockade. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you want to give a hormonal therapy, eh?
Yes, sir.
So why now, when you talk about hormonal therapy, what are the 3 options you have in this patient?
Yes, sir. For this patient, sir, I have in hormone therapy, I would like to offer him surgical castration or medical castration in the form of GnRH antagonist or agonist, sir.
So how do you choose one over the other?
Sir, I would like to explain the patients about the pros and cons of both the procedures. Surgical castration is mainly it is mainly permanent and cost effective, and also had cost effective. However, it is irreversible, and in cases of medical castration, it is cost seems to be a bit high, but it is irreversible, and the patient has the testes of the patient are retained, so patient will not have any surgical devoid of any surgical complications. Also, there is a psychogenic advantage for this patient, sir.
What are the indication of antagonist?
Yes, sir. Antagonists are generally recommended in the setting of when there is when we are suspecting any impending spinal cord compression or any kind of bladder outlet obstruction or any severe bone pain not responding to analgesic, sir. That would be the indications for antagonist. But the one
no, come
most
on,
important
come again. What did you say?
Yes, sir. Most important is impending spinal cord compression, sir.
Okay, number 1 and
yes, sir.
number
Other
2?
could be, sir, could be bladder outlet obstruction, or it could.
Okay, so
it
basically
could be
patient
severe
having symptomatic bladder outlet obstruction.
Yes,
These are
sir.
2 indication right now as per the guideline, right? Yes. So now in this patient, what is your choice?
Sir, for these patients, sir, I would like to offer as this patient is
what choice and why?
Yes, sir. As this patient is a 64-year-old and not so old, sir. So for this patient, if the life expectancy is good, sir, I would like to offer him antagonist, GnRH antagonist in the form of that is Degarelix with 240 mg loading dose followed by 80 mg
why
maintenance dose.
Antagonist in this patient? Why?
Sir, first
you said no, there are indications for antagonist. Yes. You have told me.
Yes, sir.
Do you think those indications are there in this patient?
No, sir.
Then
these indications are not there, sir. But in recently, it has been found that the GnRH antagonist, these offers in compared to agonist, they offer they had a definitive advantage of PSA progression-free survival and also overall survival. However, randomized control trials are lacking for this patient. So the advantage of antagonist is also that first we can give antagonist and then we can switch to agonist later on in these patients, sir. But for considering a surgery for this patient, that would be at 60 or 64 years of age, that would be a psychological give a psychological trauma to the patient. And
so, Samarth, if I ask you this question, which option and why? I'm not satisfied with his answer. Let us see what do you answer.
Actually, sir, I would like to give the choice to the patient. I would like to explain all 3 options. The first being orchidectomy. If the patient agrees to it.
Don't repeat all these things. I'm just asking. You will explain to the patient all the three. That's okay. But what will your personal choice? And you have to specify to the patient why this will be the first choice.
Okay, sir. I would like to advise him regarding orchidectomy. Considering the age of the patient, it is one of the options which
So you want to go for orchiectomy in this
Yes,
patient?
Sir. Yes,
okay. Amitabh?
Yes, sir. Sir, I'd like to counsel the patient for GNR's antagonist, sir. Since the patient also has bladder outflow obstruction-like feature, his IPSS score is high. He has presented with both obstructive and irritative bloods. So, in this case, that will be advantageous for this patient, sir.
Okay. But one reason you have given is patient has presented with a severe LUTS. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That can be accepted. But what is the other most important reason for which you will prefer medical castration over surgical castration, especially in this patient? Sagar, can you answer this question? Be quick, because we have to finish this case. Yes, no, just say yes, you can answer, otherwise we'll move to the other candidate. Sagar is there?
Yes, sir. No, sir.
No? Okay. Prashant?
So, sorry, sir.
No? Okay. So in this patient, you have got a low volume disease. Okay? You have got only 2 metastatic sites and PSA is not too high. So this is a patient in which you can give short-term ADT. That means if you start agonist or antagonist, you might stop this after 2-3 years. So it's a low volume disease. Okay, there is a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen. That's a possibility is there. So if you explain to the patient that this is a reversible option and you can stop after 2-3 years if your PSA remains stable.
Yes.
So that might be one of the options. Otherwise, orchiectomy, yes, for Indian patients because of the cost and it's a permanent solution, is acceptable in all patients except that those patients who don't want to accept the loss of testis. That while for them, and especially if you think it's a low volume disease and you can stop the ADT after a few years, then I think it will be overkill for that patient. So in exams for low volume disease, you can say I will prefer medical castration over surgical castration. However, if patient starts progressing after ADT, that means he becomes CRPC. That's the time you should go for orchiectomy straight away because you want to save money of the patient. Because then there is no hope of stopping ADT in that patient. You have to continue lifelong ADT, and that's the patient. So if you have a high volume disease, you have visceral metastasis, these are the patients for lifelong ADT. For oligometastatic disease, although again that's a new terminology, but for a low volume disease, you might be able to stop ADT after a few years. That's a distinct possibility might be there, right? This is how you can explain in exams. But otherwise, if you say I want to do orchiectomy, that's fine. You will justify cost, number one. Number two, compliance of the patient. Then you're right. You can say I will go for orchiectomy. But in this patient, antagonist again is an option because patient are having LUTS, and there is a chance of improvement in the LUTS score, IPSS score with the use of antagonist. ठीक है विजय?
Yes, sir.
तो आप क्या करना है इसमें? एंटागनिस्ट देना चाहते हो?
Yes, sir.
What else you want to give apart from antagonist?
Sir, antagonist I will give Degarelix, sir, 240 mg stat followed by.
What else you want to give apart from antagonist?
Yes, sir. I could offer the patient agonist also, sir. Agonist with the complete androgen blockade in the form of bicalutamide 50 mg OD, and that would be pamorelin 11.25 mg, sir, for 3 monthly, sir.
I'm asking apart from Degarelix, when you write prescription for this patient, what other medication you want to give?
Okay, sir. Sir, sir, the patient has LUTs also, so I would give him alpha blocker also, and also I would prescribe him serum calcium, sir. Serum calcium, and sir, if the patient has symptomatic bone pain, then I will also prescribe him vitamin D, sir, also. Sir, for this patient.
So most of these patients, once you offer ADT, will have side effects of ADT, right? What are the side effects of ADT you are anticipating in these patients? Tell me 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sir,
Then
first is
only you will be able to answer my first question. Now tell me.
yes, sir. Most commonly, sir, hot flushes are seen with the ADT.
Then?
Also, second, when the ADT is prolonged, we can see the osteoporosis and skeleton-related events, fractures.
And number 3.
And sir, there are also, sir, metabolic syndrome complications in the form of metabolic syndrome, sir, and diabetes could be a new onset diabetes mellitus or metabolic syndrome.
And?
Also, we could see a cardiovascular complication in the form of ischemic heart disease or myocardial infarction, sir.
Anything
Also,
else?
cognitive dysfunction, sir, in the form of could be a stroke. Or,
what happens to hematopoiesis?
yes, sir. These patients also had high chances of getting, sir, anemia. Yes, sir.
And myalgia, weakness.
Weakness, myalgia.
So now I have given you all the 4 or 5 things in front of you. Now you tell me what medication you want to give to this patient.
Sir, I will give him. I will offer the patient alpha blocker, serum calcium, and tablet calcium, and also, sir, multivitamin for this patient. And I would like to check his hemoglobin level. If it is low, then I would offer him Imetrinix in the form of oral tablets, sir, first.
Okay, and what about the biphosphonates?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, the patient is asymptomatic. Currently, patient is asymptomatic, and when we are starting ADT and when we are the anti-resorptive agents are generally started when we are anticipating prolonged ADT after 6 weeks of ADT, or I will do a DEXA scan, initial DEXA scan of this patient, and if that I will calculate the bone mineral density from the DEXA scan, sir. If it is less than -2.5, then I will offer him anti-resorptive therapy. Or if it is if it is high, bone mineral density is high, then I could offer him simple calcium, vitamin D, and I will observe and repeat the DEXA scan yearly for this patient, sir.
Okay. So what are the indication of starting biphosphonates in these patients?
Sir, the anti-resorptive therapy started in these patients when the patient is had symptomatic bone pain, and when the ADT is prolonged for more than 6 weeks with either a bone mineral density score on DEXA scan less than 2.5, or these patients had high risk of osteoporosis, like old age patients, history of rheumatoid arthritis, alcohol intake. These are the patients with high risk of osteoporosis, and also when the estimated risk of bone loss is more than 5%.
Hello.
Or history of fall or fracture is there, then we'll start anti-resorptive therapies in the form of bisphosphonates or denosumab, sir.
So, Samarth, whatever he has told about indication of biphosphonates or using these kind of anti-resorptive agents, what are the other indication you can tell? Whatever he has told apart from that.
So you can calculate the fracture risk from the risk scales which are available, and if the fracture risk, the 10-year probability is more than 3 to 5%, that also forms one of the indications. Rest of the indications are correct according to me.
So this patient, it requires biphosphonate or not? This right now.
Sir, it is unlikely that he will be requiring bisphosphonates, but still I'd like to proceed with the DEXA scan first. I'd like to document his bone mineral density and then proceed.
Okay. So now, because we have to take the second case also. Now, for all the third years, if you get this kind of case, you should understand whatever we have discussed. Apart from that, when after like you have started all this, then how to follow up this patient, number one. Number two, when do you call this patient as having CRPC, the definition of CRPC, the criteria. So you have got three kind of criteria. One is radiological progression, one is biochemical progression, third is the clinical progression. So we called it CRPC when we see either of these three methods, two should be there. 2 out of 3 is there, then we call it as CRPC. Okay, progression of disease. And then you should know, of course, it's a vast topic. What are the patients in which you can give upfront chemotherapy and ADT? That will be the next question asked in exams. You should know the STAMPEDE trial and CHARTED trial. So I think this is the basic information you should have. And then, of course, the sequencing of the agents used in CRPC, that can be as a long question in your theory exams. That is unlikely to be asked in exams Viva, but you should have a good knowledge of at least the agent's name, their mechanism of action, their side effects. Okay, all that should be very, very clear to all of you. So that sequencing will be definitely a long question in your theory exams. In practical exams, you might not be asked too deep, but at least whatever I've asked you, if you reach to up to this level, that means you're already on the pass level. Okay. So now I think we can stop first case and we'll start the next case. But whatever I've told all of you, this is the time to revise all those things. They should be on your tips and you can revise today. Next short case is.
Thank you, sir.
So for this short case, I will request Dr. Neeraj and Dr. Siddharth to take over for the short case. So Dr. Neeraj and Dr. Siddharth are there.
हेलो
Hello.
हाँ यार कर दो start
Yes, sir.
if everybody is ready then
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a 4-day-old male neonate who was referred from the pediatric department with complaint of continuous dribbling of urine since birth and a lower abdominal swelling since birth.
Okay.
हाँ यार what else do you it's
Yes.
a short right so what else
Yes, sir.
do you want to know in this with this history
Yes, sir. Sir, I want to know about the volume of the urine he passed and the consistent. It is bloody, cloudy, or dark type urine. And I also like to know about any other symptoms, like he had complaints of nausea, vomiting, or any bowel complaints, complaint of fever, or what is the for these complaints. Yes, sir.
Bas, anything else?
And sir,
Chalo, theek hai, the mother tells you that he's just 4 days old and
Yes,
he's
sir.
a male child. So he's on diaper since then. She has not seen how much amount of volume he passes. But the small size diaper gets wet and she has to change it 2 to 3 times a day. Also, she thinks the urine is clear, but she's not very sure about it. And you said regarding the bowel habits. The
Yes.
child, she says she passes the stools as soon as she breastfeeds him. But she has not actually noticed any problems with that.
Sir, I also like to know about the abdominal swelling resolves after the voiding, or not, or any head complaints of fever, and
So he's afebrile. There is no fever or something,
yes.
and she says that it reduces to some extent but does not resolve.
Okay, sir. So then
You are
then
missing salient points in history here. Very salient points in history here. Do you think you want to ask anything about antenatal history in this particular
Yes, sir.
scenario?
Yes, sir. After sir knowing about the chief complaints, I like to know about the antenatal history. That patient is a booked or unbooked patient. Any antenatal complaints he also, or any instrumentation or intervention, or
Antenatal instrumentation.
uh,
How often have you seen antenatal instrumentation in Indian scenario?
less likely, sir. Sir, I know about like to know for the any antenatal ultrasounds done or not. Yes, sir. Then I like to know about the it is a full term baby or a preterm baby. It is delivered by normal vaginal delivery or by the operative delivery. It I like to know about the presentation of the baby. Then Apgar score at the birth, and birth weight, and any congenital anomalies noted at that time. Then I also like to know about the mother's history. He had any comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, or thyroid. He had anemia during the pregnancy, or he take some antenatal medications in the forms of iron, folic acid, and he took. Yes.
Let us keep it short.
Yes.
So every neonatal case usually starts with antenatal history.
Yes.
Right. Now coming to the child's history, you are actually missing a lot of important things in child history also. What do you want to ask? You have to ask about patient, whether he's feeding normally or not.
Sir, I ask for.
I cannot hear you properly.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So should I show the next slide?
Yes, please.
Yes. So the child has a birth weight of 2 kg, and it was an emergency LSCS which was done at full term in view of severe oligomenos, and the child cried immediately. The child is passing stool, however, the urine is only drops of urine is being passed. He is taking breastfeeds fine, and there has been no signs of any respiratory distress or fever in the patient, and no other intervention was done for the child or for the mother.
Okay, then I like to know about the family history for the in the siblings. Any similar complaint and
Dr. Sagar, what do you think is the problem? So the child has had emergency LSCS with oligohydramnios.
yes, sir. So most like so there is more chance of lower urinary tract obstruction in the form of maybe, sir, posterior urethral valve or vesico-ureteric reflex or ureterocele or least likely Prune Valley syndrome or, sir, less
It's okay.
likely. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So what do you think should come to your mind as the most important cause of death in this child right now?
Sir, pulmonary hypoplasia, sir.
So
Most
anything you want to
likely-
ask about that? Chalo, theek hai. Let's. So this is the first child or second child that you also have to ask?
Yes, sir. Older sibling is no complaint, sir.
So older sibling. ठीक है, आगे further.
So then I like to examine the child. First we take the vitals, temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure. Then look for the pallor, clubbing, cyanosis, stress. Then do the anthropometric examinations like height, weight, head circumference. Then look for the head, eyes, nose, ear, mouth, palate, limbs. And then do the systemic examination, including respiratory, CNS, CVS, and in abdomen. I like to check for the contour of the abdomen, like position and umbilicus, and any dilated veins, or examine the swelling which is present in the history. We know during the history, and then do the per abdominal examination for check the palpate the swelling and look for. Then I also examine the renal area and spine of the baby. Then do the external genital examination. Look for the meatus, bilateral testis, and scrotum, and also check the anal openings.
Okay. So do we have these findings? Yes, thank you.
Yes. So the general examination is unremarkable. Per abdomen, there was distension present at the hypogastric region, which was dull to percus, extending up to the umbilicus. The genitourinary examination was again normal.
Yes, sir. Sir, patient had a hypogastric lump. Most likely it is a bladder lump. So next step, I want to catheterize the patient with infant feeding tube.
What size tube do you use?
Sir, 5 French. Sir.
Why not a Foley's catheter?
So because in Foley's catheter, it causes the bladder spasm and also obliterate the ureteric orifices with the inflated balloon, sir.
Okay. Okay, so you have placed catheter and the swelling has resolved and 200 ml of urine has drained.
Yes,
now
sir.
what?
Then I like to investigate the patient and also check the previous reports or antenatal scans.
So,
And yes, sir. And
do we have a prenatal or antenatal scan?
Yes, sir.
So hey,
Yes, sir. This was the antenatal scan. It was done at 20 weeks of pregnancy, after which the patient was then lost to follow up.
Dr. Sagar, can you read it out?
Yes, sir. Sir, in this bilateral kidneys are hydronephrotic and bladder is dilated and urine and sir and bladder is also seems to be thick walled, sir, here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
What about the urethra?
Sir, not seen in here.
So do we have any other image?
No, sir, this is the only image. For the
So it's
antenatal
okay.
scan, this is the only image.
It's okay. It's okay. So you cannot see the urethra, right?
Yes, sir.
तो अब मुझे ये बताओ, the patient has presented 4 days. After 4
Yes,
days,
sir.
na?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
So, and it was an emergency LSCS.
Yes,
So
sir.
it would have been an institutional delivery,
Yes, sir.
right? So something has been missed somewhere. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So had the patient consulted you, like maybe 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or 7 days before delivery, or maybe a month before delivery, what would have been your plan in this particular patient?
So for
Let us assume the patient has come to you at 20 weeks of pregnancy with this scan, saying that she got a scan done and this is the report, and they have got a urologist opinion.
yes,
They
sir.
have asked for a
So,
urologist opinion.
so then after seeing this scan, I like to plan for the vesicoamniotic shunt in this patient, sir. Because
Okay,
it
basic
yes, sir.
amniotic shunt.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to do anything prior to that before you plan a severely invasive procedure? What is the benefit of basic amniotic shunt?
Sir, it improves the drainage of the
No,
bladder
I'm not asking
and
you theoretical benefit.
yes, sir.
What is the actual benefit of using a basic amniotic shunt as found in randomized controlled trials?
Sir, it decrease the short-term renal deterioration, sir.
Short-term renal deterioration and long-term
Sir, it is not proven that it is beneficial for the long-term decreased chances of the renal dysplasia or
What about
deterioration, sir.
mortality?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
What about
it's
mortality?
yes, sir. It's definitely improves the mortality. Decreases the chance of mortality, sir.
How does it help?
And because patient might develop pulmonary hypoplasia, and which is most likely the chance of intrauterine death. So its chance decreases.
Okay. And so before putting basic amniotic shunt, there are a battery of tests that need to be done. You straightly don't.
Yes, sir. Sir, I go for
I don't
the
want to go
fetal.
into those details. I don't want to go. I'm just telling you that you don't
Yes, sir.
just say basic amniotic shunt. You like to say I would like to evaluate the child, see for oligohydramnios or not. It has not been reported, na? We have to assess all those parameters, then check the osmolarity,
Yes, sir.
sodium chloride values, and then only we plan, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
So now let's come back to the case. Now you have placed the Foley. So now, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. So now we have placed the Foley catheter and we have a antenatal ultrasound. Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Then, sir, I like to go for to investigate the patient in the form of sir urine routine and culture, and then after putting the Foley's catheter, after 48 hours, I like to check the serum creatinine of the patient. Then also check.
Why after 48 hours?
Sir, it takes serum resolve after 48 hours, and within 48 yes sir, it resolves after 48 hours.
अभी baseline तो पता नहीं है आपको, resolve कैसे होगा? When does the serum creatinine reflect the child's creatinine, or sorry, the neonate's creatinine and not the mother's creatinine?
Sir, after 48 hours.
How old is the neonate?
So it is 4 days. So
then why do you want to wait for 48 hours more?
Yes, sir. Sir, so I also send the sample after putting the catheter on same day and repeat after the 48 hours.
What else do you want to monitor in this particular patient?
So I will check for the serum creatinine, serum electrolytes in the like sodium, which is more chances of hyponatremia, and chances of hyperkalemia in the before putting the catheter, and check the ABG of the patient and complete blood counts.
Okay, so do you think the child might go into diuresis also?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to start antibiotics? Any other treatment? Abhi, tell me everything, na?
Yes, sir. Sir, after that, I collect the urine for the routine and culture, and do repeat ultrasound KUV, and
when do we get a first ultrasound of a neonate?
So it is antenatal scan, and so
when do we usually get, not in this particular scenario, when do we usually get an ultrasound in a neonate?
Sir,
so in this particular clinical scenario, when you have a 20-week ultrasound before in your hand,
yes, sir.
Right. So if it's an institutional delivery, if the pediatrician
yes,
sends you a call, so would you ask कि ultrasound अभी करवा लो या wait करके कराओ, कैसे करोगे?
Sir, after wait for 4 to 6 weeks, sir.
4 to 6 weeks for an ultrasound. Yeah. ये ठीक नहीं है, इसको पढ़ लेना.
Yes.
Time नहीं. It's not right. You wait for some time, but there are things which you look for. If you have those findings on the prenatal scan, you need not wait also. So now, how would you next manage this patient? You have catheterized, you have drained, you have some amount of urine. Now he's maintaining his electrolytes. Do we have the electrolyte reports? Yes, thank you. So these are the reports.
Yes, sir. So then I.
Is this creatinine normal?
No, sir. It is sir increased for the child. Normal creatinine is 0.4 for the neonates, and it is more likely to cause the renal deteriorations. But it is
sorry.
So it is of day 3, sir. Sir, after catheterization or?
नहीं ठीक है, baseline तो आया ना यार, अभी day 3 तो आ गया.
Yes, sir.
अभी आगे, do we have urine routine and culture reports?
So the urine culture is sterile in the patient.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So then I after this I go check for advice for the ultrasound QV with PVRU, sir.
With PVRU with a catheter in situ.
No, sir. Ultrasound QV, sir.
Come on, man. Please go ahead and read out the reports. Read out the film, I'm sorry.
So there is a bilateral moderate to gross hydronephrosis with on So bilateral cross hydronephrosis on and parenchymal thinning on the left side with a cortical cyst on the right side on the right side kidney. And there is no
Come on, yaar. What else do you want to see?
sir, check for the parenchymal thickness, cortical parenchymal thickness, any extra check for the hydronephrosis, parenchymal thickness, and dilated ureter is seen on the
We were
yes.
not able to see the ureter in that film. No? Now we can see
Yes, sir.
bilaterally dilated ureter.
Yes, sir. In bladder film, sir, bilateral ureter is dilated and bladder is distended, and it is with dilated posterior urethra is seen on the left side of image, and bladder is some sir, thick walled, sir. Yes.
और क्या देखना है? डायबिटिकली देखना है, सर्कुलेशन देखनी दिख रही है?
No, no, sir.
ठीक है, अभी आगे क्या करोगे?
Sir, it is most likely a case of posterior urethral wall. So then we plan for the VCU, voiding cystourethrogram, sir.
VCUG. VCUG कराने से पहले क्या-क्या प्रीरेक्विजिट्स होते हैं?
Sir,
जल्दी यार.
Sir, patient can
in this particular scenario of suspected posterior valve, what are the prerequisites to VCUG? Urine culture sterile होना चाहिए और
and normal creatinine level, sir.
creatinine का
और-
भी कितना है?
Yes, sir.
तो creatinine बड़ा होगा तो कैसे आपका VCUG में इफेक्ट पड़ेगा? चलो कोई नहीं, अब आगे चलो. You'll get a VCUG, right? Do we have VCUG?
Yes, sir.
Can you read
Yes.
the film, please?
Yes, in this, sir, the bladder is dilated with some small with left-sided with it diverticula, multiple diverticulas and circulation with dilated prostatic posterior urethra up, and then anterior urethra is normal, and there is bilateral right side grade 5 and left side most like grade 4 reflux. Yes.
So what is your diagnosis in this, based on this imaging?
Sir, based on this, sir, it is most likely a case of posterior urethral wall with the dilated bladder with multiple diverticulars and with bilateral grade 5 vesico-ureteric reflux. Sir.
Okay. So what is your plan? What next?
So after the getting the PSC workup and clearance from the anesthesia, plan for the posterior wall posterior wall fulguration, sir. Posterior urethral wall fulguration.
Anesthesia people have said, okay, we'll help you out. They have induced the child, right?
Yes, sir.
Now just tell me, how would you fulgurate the valve?
Sir, for first we do the cystoscopy.
Which scope will you use?
Sir, for pediatric, it is 9 French cystoscope and
4 किलो का बच्चा है, ये सुनना था इसलिए बोल रहा. Do you think in a 2 kg small for date neonate, your 9 French cystoscope will go inside?
no, sir.
Huh?
मैं बोलूं कुछ?
Sir, sorry, I'm sorry.
सर मैं बीच में बोलूं? यार सागर, 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 यदि तुम इस तरह से बोलोगे ना तो एग्जामिनर यदि नहीं भी चाह रहा होगा ना तो तुमको भगा देगा एग्जाम से. मैं काफी देर से सुन रहा हूँ, ये जो तुम बोल रहे हो ना ये कम्प्लीटली एब्सर्ड है. इतना एब्सर्ड है कि मुझे बीच में ये बोलना पड़ा कि पूरी तरह से एब्सर्ड है. कुछ भी बोल रहे हो यार, सोचो फिर बोलो, और ऐसे नहीं बोलना है कि कुछ भी बोले जा रहे हो तब से.
यस सर.
इतने छोटे बच्चे में तुम्हारा कौन सा स्कोप, पीडियाट्रिक स्कोप देखा है कौन सा है? ये 2 kg का बच्चे में चला जाएगा तुम्हारा स्कोप? 9 फ्रेंच बोल रहे हो?
नहीं सर.
फिर तो बोलने से पहले कुछ सोचो भी.
सर
और भी बहुत सारी चीजें छूट गई हैं सागर. आपने पेशेंट का क्रिएटिनिन नॉर्मलाइज नहीं हुआ, इलेक्ट्रोलाइट ठीक नहीं हुआ, फेलियर टू थ्राइव हुआ नहीं, आपने सिस्टोस्कोपी के लिए पीएससी कराना शुरू कर दिया उसे. सो लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स आर लैकिंग. सर एकदम जो बोल रहे हैं ना, मेरे को पहले था कि आप ऑनलाइन है, आई वाज नॉट वेरी श्योर, लेकिन बहुत से सर बोल रहे हैं बहुत सारी चीजें लैकिंग है यार. ऐसे नहीं होगा.
ये बहुत सारी चीजें नहीं, ये पूरा ही एब्सर्ड है. यानी जो भी चीजें बोल रहे हैं ना इसका कोई मीनिंग नहीं है. इस तरह से नहीं बोलते हैं सागर. एग्जाम में जब बोलते हैं ना एक सीक्वेंस मेंटेन करते हैं कि हम क्या बोलना चाह रहे हैं, क्या करना चाह रहे हैं. जैसे तुम मैनेजमेंट जो बता रहे हो ना, इस मैनेजमेंट के हिसाब से बच्चे का क्या ही होगा. इस तरह से नहीं बोलते हैं. जैसे तुमने कैथेटराइज कर दिया, ठीक है, कैथेटराइज करने जैसे डॉक्टर सिद्धार्थ ने बोला, या तुम वो वेट करोगे ना कि उसका कुछ क्रिएटिनिन बेसलाइन, जो भी बेसलाइन बनेगा, नया बेसलाइन आने तक वेट करोगे, कुछ तो करोगे कि बस सीधा सर्जरी करनी है.
यस सर.
सागर, am I audible?
यस सर.
मैं यार टोकना नहीं चाह रहा था, अब स्टार्ट हुई है बात तो सुनो. तुमने देखा है कोई पीवी का केस, मतलब पीडियाट्रिक सर्जरी में जाके कभी कॉल आया है? नहीं मतलब देखा है या नहीं देखा? हो सकता है नहीं देखा हो.
सर पीयूवी का तो नहीं सर देखा है.
अच्छा, अगर वह देखोगे बहुत कॉमन है ये जो है, तो वहां पे तुम जाओगे तो कैथेटर नहीं लगा रहेगा किसी को.
यस सर.
और ये अपने बुक में भी कैथेटर नहीं लगाते. फोलिज कैथेटर जो तुम बोल रहे हो बार बार,
नहीं सर,
जिसने भी देखा होगा प्रैक्टिकली वह नहीं लगा रहता. तो क्यों लगाते हैं?
सर इन्फेंट फीडिंग क्यों?
फोलिज नहीं डालते हो?
हाँ सर.
क्यों डालते हैं? इन्फेंट फीडिंग डालते हैं उसको.
यस सर.
उसको प्रेफर करते हैं. तुम बार बार कैथेटराइज कर रहे हो, फोलिज कैथेटर डाल रहे हो, आईएफटी डालते हैं वहाँ पे.
यस सर. आईएफटी
क्योंकि फोलिज डालना पीवी के केस में बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, प्रैक्टिकली बहुत मुश्किल है, नहीं जाता. क्योंकि डायलेटेड पोस्टीरियर यूरेथ्रा रहता है और ये सॉफ्ट होता है, वो जाके कॉइल हो जाएगा, वो ड्रेन नहीं कर पाएगा. सेकेंड थिंग, इन्फेंट फीडिंग ट्यूब पे डालते हैं तो उसको कंफर्म करते हैं, क्योंकि डालना इतना इजी नहीं है. वो पोस्टीरियर यूरेथ्रा अगेन डायलेटेड होता है, वहां पड़ा रहता है, तो उसको आइदर एक्सरे और अल्ट्रासाउंड में कंफर्म करते हैं. उसकी टिप हार्ड होती है, इसलिए थोड़ा फर्म होती है, मतलब फोलिज के कंपैरिजन में, इसीलिए आईएफटी डालते हैं. तो बार बार वो बोलोगे ना तो कोई भी समझ जाएगा तुमने देखा नहीं है वो केस. एक्चुअली बिल्कुल बिगनिंग में, और बाकी तो सब बातें हो ही रही है. ठीक है,
केस देखने की बात
ऐसे भी देखने के पर्पस से भी जा सकते हो.
नहीं, दूसरी चीज ये भी है ना सागर, तुम्हें पता है कि आज की केसेस क्या है? मोटा ये तो पता है कि डायग्नोसिस मोटा मोटी उसकी पीयूवी है।
यस सर।
ऑलरेडी
हाँ
चार्ट पे लिखा हुआ है। तो एटलीस्ट पीयूवी तुमने पढ़ा है पूरा चैप्टर, एटलीस्ट कैम्बेल तो पढ़ा होगा।
यस सर।
पढ़ोगे तो बुक में लिखा हुआ है कि एफटी डालते हैं।
कैम्बेल वाला वो चैप्टर पढ़ने के बाद ये आंसर्स जो तुम दे रहे हो ये नहीं है सही।
और फिटनेस के लिए कोई भी ट्राइज करता है तुरंत। कैथेटर डाला और तुमने पीएससी करवाना शुरू कर दिया, ये बिल्कुल एब्सर्ड है यार, कोई नहीं करता उस स्टेज में।
कोई नहीं, जस्ट प्रिपेयर करो, इस चीज को अच्छे से प्रिपेयर करते हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि इससे कोई, ऐसा नहीं है कि तुम्हारे पास सफिशिएंट टाइम होता है, नहीं सफिशिएंट टाइम होता है ना 2 प्रेजेंटेशंस के बीच में। तो जो प्रेजेंटेशन एटलीस्ट जो टॉपिक है कम से कम वो तो कैम्बेल से पढ़ लो।
यस सर।
एटलीस्ट उतना तो पढ़ लो ताकि कम से कम जो आंसर्स दोगे ना तो आंसर्स कम से कम जस्टिफाइबल तो लगे। यानी ऐसा भी तो हो कि थोड़ा भी तो तुम यानी जस्टिफाइबल चीज बोलोगे तब तो तुम किसी को सुनने का भी मन होगा। एकदम शुरू से अंत तक सारा चीज तुम गलत बोलोगे तो नहीं किसी को सुनने का फिर मन होगा।
यस सर।
ठीक है, जब सिद्धार्थ कुछ बोलिए।
नहीं सर,
नहीं, मुझे बस यही बोलना था क्योंकि मैं एक्चुअली इसका सुन रहा था शुरू से अंत तक, ये एक भी चीज सही से नहीं बोल रहा था, इसलिए मैंने मुझे ये
फेस टू फेस में पता नहीं चलता ऑनलाइन में ना कौन सुन, मतलब तो इसलिए ठीक है। मतलब देयर आर फॉल्ट्स, यू विल हैव टू गो एंड रीड अगेन एंड एटलीस्ट उसको फॉर्मलाइज करना पड़ेगा, ऐसे तो नहीं चलेगा।
इस एक किताब जैसे पढ़ते हो ना, जो पीयूवी चैप्टर जब भी पढ़ो ना तो उसका एक सिंपल सा नोट्स तो बना के रख लो कि हाँ करना क्या है, एक सीक्वेंस तो बना के रख लो। वो तुम्हारे थ्योरी में भी काम आएगा, इसमें भी काम आएगा कि करते क्या है, किस सीक्वेंस में करते हैं, वो क्या करते हैं।
यस सर।
ठीक है, इसको अच्छे से करो। ऐसा भी नहीं है कि इससे यानी एक दिन तुम ठीक से नहीं बोल रहे उसका मतलब ये नहीं कर सकते, बट उसको चैप्टर को पढ़ो, उसका एक नोट्स बनाओ और उसको कम से कम एक सीक्वेंस तो बनाओ कि हम किस तरह से प्रोसीड करना है। हैफेजर्ड वे में प्रोसीड नहीं कर सकते। इस तरह की बातें यदि तुम एग्जाम में बोलोगे ना तो कोई तुमको जस्टिफाई नहीं कर पाएगा वहां पे।
यस।
ठीक है, तो इसको जो भी प्रिपेयर करके आओ ना उसको कम से कम उतना तो पढ़ के आओ कि बातें थोड़ी जस्टिफाइबल लगे। कोई नहीं, अगले दिन अगली बार से पढ़ के आना फिर। चलिए, और कुछ पूछना है डॉक्टर साहब? कुछ
सर नहीं, आप
नहीं, अब मैं अब इस पे पूछना नहीं चाहता मैं, जब तक प्रिपेयर करके नहीं आएगा पूछ के क्या फायदा है।
ठीक है सर।
इस टॉपिक से स्केप भी नहीं है अगर इसको पढ़ना पड़ेगा।
यस सर।
कोई नहीं, अगली बार से जो भी जिसका भी और प्रिपेयर होके आना, और क्या।
खत्म कर देते हैं सर फिर अभी आज के लिए।
हाँ बिल्कुल।
ठीक है ठीक है सागर एंड सौम्या, थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू
बॉस।
थैंक यू सर।